Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? I'll get to the normal chat in just a moment, but I do want to say good morning to Expert Demolition PTY. PTY, does that put you in Australia or South Africa, something like that? They go for the PTY. Expert Demolition. Drop us a note in the chat. Let us know where in the world you are. While you're doing that, I'm going to say good morning to Mark Whiting, who is in the house. Gary Muirhead, who was absent yesterday, but he's back. Good morning, guys. Sorry for my absence yesterday, but I do have a note from my mother. Why? Yeah, I think you were out of reach yesterday, weren't you? Andy Darville, still enjoying the hat. Thank you very much. I must admit, when they handed it to me, I was really quite pleased. Dan Cullen was here early doors. Who else do we have here? I'm just rattling through. Yeah, there's Andy. Morning, everyone. Let's see what today brings on the show. Well, I'll tell you in just a moment what the show's going to bring, but loads to get through. Jim Turner has just walked in through the back door while no one was looking. Morning, Jim. Let me press your button just to keep things all in check. Did anyone watch that Channel 5? I was going to call it a documentary. It wasn't. It was a docudrama, I would say, about Hugh Edwards last night on Channel 5. Yeah, bit of a wrong one. And then after, admittedly, he didn't do jail time for his crimes, but having been found out, and they've now done this docudrama, he then went public and said that basically it was out of order for them to do it. Just slightly odd. You'd have thought, keep your head down, mate, really. But there you are. Dan says, got the plastic weighted down. It was a busy morning. Yeah, apparently the wind was so bad yesterday. I think they've got a plastic liner down on the site where Dan is. 20 tons of material on it. The wind still moved it. Don't know how that came about, but apparently that's the case. Yes, the weather was shocking yesterday, but okay today. It's just snowing, right? It's snowing. Is it? We've got a bit of light drizzle here, but still quite windy. And Ken Hatcher with the update, the weather update from Wales. Good morning, he says, and he's got rain, he's got cloud, and then he's got sunshine. The sun will eventually shine upon the righteous, Ken. Fear not, my friend, fear not. Another packed show. Kind of goes without saying these days. The shows are getting longer by the day, and for that I can only apologise. Got no super long films today, but my morning monologue is a couple of hundred words longer than it normally is, so that's going to extend things. So I tell you what, why don't we crack on, because I know some of you have got to get back to work. Let's crack on. Without further ado, let me roll the intro and get this show on the road. There's me apologising for super long shows and Andy Darville having none of it. Don't apologise. We love it. Thank you very much indeed for that. Yeah, I watched about 5 minutes of that documentary last night and it was making me sick. Yeah, that was kind of my feeling. One of the other things, and you know, bearing in mind we are post Jimmy Savile, post Stuart Hall, post Rolf Harris. One of the things that came out in that docudrama was your man Hugh Edwards, who, you know, bearing in mind he was on the telly every single night of the week, you know, very well-known figure. You could certainly pick him out of a crowd. Was meeting this young fella in a hotel. You would have thought that somebody would have gone, "That's that newsreader fella there," and that is that his son? Is that his nephew? Is that sketchy? You would have thought. Yeah, hiding in plain sight. Now, Andy Darville did ask what was on the show, and I'm about to tell him. Because it is Wednesday, the 25th of March. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming, and the authentic voice of the global demolition industry. In today's show, precise digging courtesy of Hitachi. Skipping along with Wacker Neuson, we're heading back to ConExpo in the company of Bobcat, and Simex gets ready for SaMoTeR 2026. And today's morning monologue, I'll kind of flag it up. It's called Wait Till They Legislate. And it's going to be talking about how this industry will sit on its hands and sit on its hands and sit on its hands and not do what they should do until the government requires them to. That's what it's about. Wait till they legislate. We'll get to all of that. Gary Muirhead says it's amazing how money can make people turn a blind eye. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the final thing finally came out in 2023, but they'd been investigating him for 5 years at that point. For those of you who just joined us, I'm talking about Hugh Edwards. So yeah, it was as I say, post Jimmy Savile, post Stuart Hall, post Ralph Harris, post Gary Glitter, you would have thought, we would have a greater sensitivity to those kinds of things. And when I say those kinds of things, I think we all know what we're talking about. And yet, no, 5 years, he firing money over the internet to these young boys. Yeah, awful business. Anywho, we're done with that. Let's crack on with a bit of Caterpillar, because then we're going into the world of Hitachi. Now, I'm going to preempt what's about to happen here. I'm about to play you a video that's talking about precise digging, which, let's face it, we all need a bit of that from time to time. But it features a manufacturer that I know Mr. Cullen is not a huge fan of. So, Dan, get ready with your snarky comments, because I do enjoy them. This is Hitachi.
We are in Winder, Georgia right now on a 10-mile, 16-inch, 500-wall project for Southeast Connections. And just enjoying life and loving everything about it. I've been in the pipeline industry roughly 17 years. I've run Hitachi's almost every major brand on the market. They're a little quicker. I like the quickness of a Hitachi excavator. They are very responsive. There's some that when you engage the levers, a lot of times when you move them, it seems like you have to really move them to get the engagement. With Hitachi, they're right there. As soon as you engage and start to move your joysticks, everything seems to come to you.
This is the SCC's job site. It's a big utility project they have going on. They're doing 10 miles of work here. They've bought close to 100 excavators, Hitachis, the past 2 years. Their primary reason is just reliability, power, and I think the comfort is what I hear most of. I think what they like the most about the 210s is really that sneaky power, because it's so quiet in the cab. And then when they go to operating with it, they realize just it's really strong, but you can't really tell because of how quiet it is in the cab. One of the main reasons the 210 is the most popular excavator is because of the 3-pump system. It separates ourselves from the competition. You can do several functions and the machine never slows down with the 3-pump system, and that makes a huge difference.
I've been around a lot of Hitachi machines. They're good machines, they're durable, they're easy to use, and they last. Over the course of the years, I've heard from several operators that compared to the competitors, they last longer, they're very easy to use, and they're simple, very well made.
So the speed of the machines are really great, especially for what we do, because everything has to be done in a nice, timely manner, especially coming through, neighborhoods and stuff like that. These machines right here is what we need to be able to get through the job. Right now we're going through a lot of red clay, and everybody knows red clay can be pretty tough to go through, but these machines seem to have no problem digging straight through it and no problem at all. Since I've been running Hitachi, it's pretty much blown every other machine I've ran out of water. I really love this machine that I've been on this job. Nice, comfortable, it's very relaxing. Can't beat the AC and the heated seats, and you just can't beat the power that it has to be able to get the job done in a nice, timely manner.
On future projects, it would not hurt my feelings to see Hitachis on the job site.
I always beg to have one on every job I go to.
I'll come back to Hitachi in just a moment because we've had this from Andy Dalvell. Didn't realise he was into little boys. They weren't that little. I mean, they were 17, I think, but I guess it had something in common with Rolf Harris, 2 little boys and all that. Makes me sick, though, how it can go on for years in the public eye. Jim Turner has an explanation of that. He was a long-time BBC employee. Why am I not surprised he's a kiddie fiddler? Yeah, indeed. I'll answer this one from Gary Muirhead first of all. There we are. That's the one I was looking for. Do you have any new show sponsors lined up ready to come on board? Yeah, we do. Actually, I've invoiced them. They haven't paid the bill yet, but we agreed with one while I was in Vegas, funnily enough. We've got a new one coming on board, which I'm just basically waiting for them to produce their video ads so we can start using it. But yeah, we've got a new one coming on. I'll keep it under wraps for now. Don't want to queer things just in case they do get cold feet at the last minute. But yes, we do have a new one coming on board, which I'm delighted about. Dan, talking about Hitachi. Oh, I'm ready. Gary Muirhead, that's a deep south voice. Dan, as I expected, that's not right. They are slow in response. The guy on the video said they were quick. Apparently not. They lack power. Komatsu they need. Not sure what that means. Andy Dalvell says, I do like a bit of Hitachi, but they do need to upgrade their cabs. They have the new screen, but still got the old style knobs and switches. Cat and Volvo have it right, I reckon. It's all about the cab. Not surprisingly, given the fact that we're talking 2 operators basically here. Better than this bag of shit I'm covered today on a Lugong CLG 939E 40-tonner. You pays your money and stuff. Dan says, yes, Andy, and power upgrade. They lack oomph and dig force. Ken Hatter on the flip side says they're not a bad machine. That was always my take on these things. They need to try other brands. How much did Hitachi have to slip these guys for all these kind words? If you ask a bunch of operators, you're never going to get all good words. There will always be gripes. All you have to do is make sure that you satisfy the MD or the boss on the site. And then after that, all the lads will fall into line by and large. That's the way we found it. And Dan saying, yeah, feel sorry for you, Gary. I'm sure there was another comment there. Can't see it. But yes, new show sponsor coming on board. We could do with more, and we're working on some more in the background. But yeah, watch this space. I think Hitachi's a nippy. No complaints here. Better than Komatsu and JCB. That's kind of the take I kind of expect with Hitachi. But as I say, Dan has a bit of a bee in his bonnet about Hitachi, and he's quite right to do so. We're going to be back in a moment with we're going to skip along to the next part after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, but there is this kind of trend to make machines more than they actually are. This idea of adding versatility. We'll offer you a different boom arrangement, or we'll offer you a different tracked undercarriage, or whatever it might be. Trying to get more versatility. A lot of the times, I think it's like it's when Mars offered a dark chocolate Mars bar. It was okay, but it wasn't a Mars bar. Leave things well alone. But there are times when a bit of additional versatility comes in mighty handy, like this.
The Dual View Dumper DV60 with skip exchange system impresses with maximum efficiency and versatile applications. The innovative platform skip opens up new fields of application and prepares municipalities for a wide variety of tasks. In addition to the classic skip, the DV60 can optionally be equipped with a 3-way tipper platform, which offers extreme flexibility thanks to a triple tipping function and removable sidewalls. The skip can be changed in just 5 minutes and can be carried out by a single person. Operation is convenient via a joystick, supported by hydraulic and power connections. The dual view swiveling seat ensures maximum safety during operation. Test the skip exchange system now at your local dealer.
Yeah, Dan, I totally agree. We actually saw that at Balmer, but it was largely static, and until you actually see it in operation, and you can think about applying it to a specific job, you kind of need to see it for what it really is. I think it's a fantastic idea. Let's have a look. Yes, just give the guys loads of caps and goodies, and the kind words will follow. That's kind of the way I experience it as well. Let's have a look. Exactly. They pay the guys there to talk good, but they need to try Develon. Yeah, Dan is a big Develon fan. Cheers, Dan. Maybe spoiled with Volvo and Cat. The cab is really dated. Takes me back to the 90s with the old switchgear and display. You'd have to think, I mean, bearing in mind, let me think, Komatsu, Caterpillar, Volvo have all updated their cabs to a large degree in the past year, 18 months. You'd have to think the next Gen X Hitachis will probably follow suit. Let's have a look. Jim Turner, modular machines. Off-the-shelf options means everyone has the chance to get the machine that's just right for them. Yeah, and particularly if you're running a hire fleet, perhaps, to have those various options in your fleet. I need a dumper. Yeah, what are you going to use it for? Well, actually, I'm going to use. Oh, we've got just the body you need. Unlike me, who has got the body he doesn't want. I wonder will it come to the UK? I would imagine it is available should you so desire. Andy Dalvell. Now that's smart. You can load the bed easier than a traditional dumper. How many times do you see guys throwing Harris fences onto a big dumper and struggling? Good idea. Not just struggling, but watching them fall off as well. Good point. Hang on a minute. Gary says, seen one of those dual view dumpers on the road. It looked so strange, like it was reversing down the road. Yeah, I've driven one. And when you get used to the idea of kind of when I drove it as a dumper first, so load in front. And, this is quite nice. And then you turn it round, and it's like this back end that I'm not looking at. It's a weird experience, but it works well. Wonder why they didn't have a HIAB on that. Maybe that will become an option. We shall see. I know that's certainly an option on some of these big, like piston bully track carriers and the Prinoth as well. Jim Turner, if that slides off that easy, I could have a forklift, backhoe, gritter body, snowplow, scissor lift. The list is endless. The list and the possibilities are endless. Yes, they are indeed. I do want to say a quick word, by the way, to Ken Hatcher, if Ken is still in the house. I need your address, mate. I need to send you your prize. I don't have your address. At least I don't think I have. I've checked back a while and I can't find it. So if you could resend me that would be very, very useful. Let's have a bit of this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Yeah, we find ourselves at kind of a transition point in this show. ConExpo is still fresh in the mind, very fresh in the mind, fresh in the feet as well. I've got a very black toenail as a result of ConExpo, for which I'm struggling to forgive it, but that's all. But yes, ConExpo, done, dusted, but still fresh in the mind. SaMoTeR still to come. So we're going to start off by going back to ConExpo with Bobcat, and then we're going to go and have a word with Simex, who are going to be at SaMoTeR. So Bobcat first.
New technologies that they're working on developing are game changer as far as compact construction equipment goes.
When I came here today, I was giddy. I'm giddy to be here today.
We're really excited about our future.
Nearly 70 years ago, Bobcat created the world's first compact loader, and in doing so, we created an entire industry.
This is the next era for our industry.
Job sites are more complex, expectations are higher, and operators need machines that help them do more with less effort.
Loader Evolution for our dealers is about simplicity, clarity, and most important, confidence.
We're moving into a world with younger generation coming up that are used to using all these different components of technology, and so I'm excited that Bobcat's on the forefront of that.
Whether you've been operating equipment for 20 years or you're stepping in a loader for the very first time, there's a Bobcat loader for you.
We're going to provide solutions and capabilities to operators, and the proof is going to be exactly how it's used. What can we do with our machines? You name it, it can be done.
Watch Me is about our incredible customers and what they can accomplish with Bobcat equipment. They build roads, they build bridges, they build the communities that they live and work in every single day.
I like that Bobcat's actually listening to customers and actually putting it in their products.
If you think this is big, just wait. We're just getting started.
We're bringing intelligence to compact equipment.
We're really excited about the direction Bobcat's moving and how their leadership has been so open to feedback and not just hearing it, but taking it and incorporating it into the product and to what our customers need.
So, a couple of things are rising from that. Dan has just asked, are the prices all done? Probably not. Probably not. This is a terrible thing to admit, but we're still going through, well, we're going through bags, because I won't bore you, but we're still going through bags. But also, we were offered a couple of bits and pieces, and I declined because I was carrying too much gear. And a few companies said, don't worry, we'll send it to you. We'll get it in the post. We've had some bits and pieces arrive. In actual fact, this one arrived just yesterday, funnily enough. This is from, I know somebody won a Rock Breakers hat the other day, but we've also got a Rock Busters mug. That arrived yesterday, and I've not had a chance to do anything with it at all. They've also sent me a mouse mat. I don't use, excuse me, I don't actually use a mouse mat. So if anyone wants a mouse mat, I don't think it's worth doing a competition about, but if anyone would like a mouse mat, let me know, and I'll bung it in the post for you. Andy Dalvell says, did Bobcat make the original skid steer? I think it's open to debate, but yes, by and large, they did. If you go back on this channel 2 years probably, we actually spoke to a guy called Joe Keller, whose father and uncle had invented not a skid steer, but like a three-wheeled three-wheel loader for working in chicken sheds, and that basically evolved to become the skid steer, which became the Melrow Bobcat skid steer, and so on down the line. So yes, basically yes, they did. Dan says, I was chatting to Versatile Plant last night, and they're now hiring out Bobcats to companies. Yes, they are. And I'm fairly sure, and I don't know if I've missed it, but I did see something from Lee and the gang over at Versatile. They're actually hosting an open day. I hope I haven't missed it, but it's down in Kent somewhere, which is where they're based. And yeah, that'd be a good opportunity to go and have a bit of a play on some Bobcats, I would have thought. Rather than selling, they're doing both, but it's a niche thing at the moment. Yeah, back in the day, and I'm sure I've mentioned this before, back in the day, there used to be a real divide between what could be hired and what could be sold. I was working for Leverton, the old Caterpillar dealer, and they launched what they refer to as BCP Hire, which was building and construction products, which was basically backhoe loaders down, so mini excavators and skid steers and stuff like that. And there was fucking absolute outcry from the plant hire companies who were already buying Caterpillar equipment. How dare you, enter the same market as us? We're cancelling orders. How dare you? You fast forward a few years, and apparently that's become acceptable to the point, in fact, that you've got Cat rental, Komatsu rental, and so on down the line. Liebherr do rental as well. But bizarrely, there were always one or two products that were exempt from that objection. Hydraulic breakers, skid steers, and forklift trucks. For some reason, it was perfectly acceptable to hire those and to sell them at the same time. But everything else, oh no, mustn't do that. But yes, here we are. Here we are. Stephen Edwards. Good morning, Stephen. In 1957, brothers Cyril and Lewis Keller of Rothsay, Minnesota, invented the first skid steer. There you are. As I say, I met up with, I think it was Cyril's son, Joe Keller. Absolute diamond of a fella, to the point where he's doing a lot of fundraising, but talking about creating a museum of Bobcat and stuff like that. Yeah, an absolute diamond. If you want to go and have a look, it's on the YouTube channel. Just just search for Joe Keller, you'll find it. Would there be a market for skid steer hire, as there's not a lot of jobs on skid steers? There's not. Funnily enough, I was shown a product. Here's how coincidence works and serendipity. I was shown a product by the company I'm about to show you, Simex. They've got a product. I've got the book of words here somewhere. Here we are. That's the thing. See that? You probably can't, but that thing there is called the ART 1000. Okay, and it's basically like a road planer attachment that goes on the front of a skid steer and grinds up your asphalt. Nothing new there, I'm sure you'd agree. This one's different. This one has got a system within it, like a chemical system within it, that it grinds up the top layer of a road, adds an additive to it, which basically begins to break down the bitumen that was already there. You then deposit that back on the road, and bitumen is added to it, much as you would laying a road, and then the whole thing is completed with a compactor. So with 3 machines working in train, you are digging up, retreating, relaying, compacting a stretch of road. And I said, that looks fantastic. I mean, I haven't actually seen it in action, but it looks fantastic, you know, bearing in mind the state of the UK's roads. I said, will that be coming to the UK? And he said, no, probably not. You don't have enough skid steers. So in answer to Dan's point there, would there be a market for skid steer hire? Is there not a lot of jobs on skid steers? Precisely that. Yes, there's not a lot of skid steers. There are. I mean, you see them on virtually every top-down demolition job, so they are about. But yeah, the fact that we've got a potential solution to some of our hideous roads, but we can't have it because we haven't bit the skid steer bug as they have in, well, America definitely, but other parts of the world. Weird, right? And Dan says, wow, that's interesting. Do you know, it was one of those things. He showed it to me as an aside, and we just sat there and chatted about it for about 10 minutes. Like, that seems amazing. What a fantastic idea. And yet, we're unlikely to get it here because of the lack of skid steers. Go figure. Go figure. Anyway, I've mentioned Simex. Let's get this out of the way, and I'll show you what they are going to be bringing to SaMoTeR in just a few months' time. Yeah, I'm just going to throw straight over to our friend Ricardo. Let me just make sure I've got his name right, because I've just described him as my new friend, and I want to make sure I get his name right. Yeah, Ricardo Vincenzi of Simex, who took us through exactly what the company will be showing when SaMoTeR rolls around at the beginning of May.
Our main focus will be on screening buckets for recycling, demolition and recycling. We have different models on the range, like this one, but let's say historically we have screening buckets on the range. Now we introduce 6 new models specific for landscaping, soil cleaning, soil remediation, compost aeration, and for mini and midi excavators, from 1.5 up to 10 tons excavators. They are called tornado buckets. You can choose to have polyurethane tools or steel tools if the application is more like heavy. On the other side, we have the new diamond blade saw for skid steers. It's a kind of trencher, wheel saw, but with diamond blade equipped on it. There's plenty of diamond saws on the market. Manual pushing wheel saws, diamond saws for long line cutting on the asphalt or concrete. But there is no diamond blade saw for skid steer. So we brought the technology of diamond blade saw, well known, of course, to the skid steer level. So now there's the security of the operator at first. There is the productivity, so production increase a lot. If you have a skid steer on your fleet, you can both choose to have Simex planer, Simex trencher, wheel saw, or blade. So we thought about giving a wide range of attachments for the road maintenance professionals. SaMoTeR is like the Italian construction trade fair since ever. So it's our small Bauma, of course small since it's mainly Italian, but we need to be there for showing our new products, our new ideas, what we expect from the future of technologies, construction world.
So, going back to this, Jim Turner says, so why not upscale it for the front of a backhoe loader? I guess that's a possibility, but I'll come back to that in a moment. Dan says, seen an advert on their concrete planer for excavator. Looks a great tool. They make some really, really smart tools. Here's the point. Going back to Jim's point here. If you were Simex and you have introduced this ART 1000 and you could mend roads by basically tagging on the back of the skid steer market in America, where there are tens of thousands, or you can concentrate on the backhoe loader, which is largely a British product and which is diminishing in popularity anyway. Which one are you going to go for? You play the averages, right? You go where the demand is, and the demand unquestionably is likely to be in the States. I'd love to see the system come over here. I'd love to see it in action, and we are in talks with them about actually going to do something to see it in action to sort of spread the word a bit. I'll keep you posted on all of that. But yeah, as it stands at the moment, it's not likely to be on our shores anytime soon. Deeply disappointing. Anyway, that's about it for the main part of this morning show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I hope to see you again very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'll be back immediately after this. In the early 2000s in the Netherlands, authorities conducted an experiment. They removed the traffic lights, the signs and the curbs from a busy intersection. And the result was a counterintuitive but rip-roaring success. By stripping away the automated certainty of signals, drivers were forced to rely on human interaction and eye contact to negotiate right-of-way. That perceived risk caused motorists to slow down naturally and pay closer attention to their surroundings. Recorded accidents dropped to nearly zero, while traffic flow actually improved. In the report that accompanied that experiment, it was suggested that traditional rules often unteach responsibility, whereas removing them can foster a more alert, social, and safe environment. And that approach demonstrates that in some instances, less regulation can lead to better collective outcomes. The UK demolition and construction industry, however, is an undeniable powerhouse. It's a sector capable of boring massive tunnels under the heart of London, erecting towering skyscrapers and regenerating entire city landscapes. Yet for all its engineering brilliance, the industry has a glaring, fatal flaw. It's chronically incapable of doing the right thing unless the government explicitly forces it to do so. If there is a moral high ground to be taken, whether it involves paying small businesses fairly, protecting the planet, or ensuring basic human rights in the supply chain, the sector's default stance is to drag the heels of its steel toe-cap boots. All too often, the industry treats ethical, financial, and environmental progress like a toddler treats vegetables, flatly refusing to engage until a stern authority figure steps in and makes it mandatory. For over a century, the UK construction industry has relied on the archaic practice of cash retentions. In theory, withholding a percentage of a subcontractor's payment is meant to act as a financial safeguard against defects. In practice, however, it's functioned as a legalised form of financial hostage-taking that disproportionately harms small to medium enterprises. Why does my nose itch every time I do one of these? When massive contractors withhold these payments, they choke the cash flow of the smaller businesses that actually do the heavy lifting. Sometimes these withheld payments account for up to 100% of a subcontractor's profit margin. Unscrupulous companies have been known to hold on to money that doesn't belong to them, secretly hoping that the supplier will simply go under so the debt disappears. In fact, it's estimated that SMEs have lost over £2.5 billion due to upstream insolvencies. Did the industry recognise this moral failing and fix it on its own? Of course not. The Construction Leadership Council spent half a decade trying to get the industry to agree on moving away from retentions, but the sector remains stubbornly paralysed. Because the industry couldn't police itself, the government has now announced the toughest crackdown on late payments in 25 years, including a complete ban on withholding retentions and a mandatory 60-day payment cap. Once again, the industry proved that unless you make bad behaviour explicitly illegal, bad behaviour will thrive. When it comes to the environment, the construction industry loves to talk a big game. There's endless press releases about green building and sustainability. But the reality is far more grim. According to the UK Green Building Council, that's the UK GBC, the built environment, the country's second largest source of carbon emissions, is falling dangerously behind the pace needed to meet net zero commitments. Since 2018, embodied carbon emissions in the sector have fallen by only 14%, falling drastically short of the 24% reduction required to stay on track. The industry is currently moving at roughly half the speed necessary. And to put that into perspective, that's the equivalent of the emissions generated by heating 9 million homes for an entire year. Why the failure? Because there's no legal gun to the industry's head. The UK GBC has explicitly stated, I can say this word, the UK GBC has explicitly stated that to unlock change, the sector needs mandatory whole-life carbon regulation. Without a mandate, the industry just reverts to its old habits. And perhaps the most damning indictment is the handling of modern slavery. You might assume that forced labour is a relic of the past, but in the UK construction sector, it's a worrying and emerging trend. According to the charity Unseen, the construction industry ranks second only to the care sector for exploitation calls. In 2024 alone, the charity identified 492 potential victims. The industry's reliance on multiple layers of subcontracting and opaque supply chains creates the perfect breeding ground for exploitation. The sector's approach seems to be one of willful ignorance. As Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips pointedly told representatives, modern slavery is extremely prevalent. If you're not finding it, I suggest that you're not looking hard enough. If you want to understand how the industry responds to legislation versus moral obligation, look at the contrast between physical safety and workforce diversity. On site, health and safety is taken incredibly seriously. Workers are decked out in PPE. Why? Because the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974 legally compels them to do so. If they ignore the compliance, they face massive fines and criminal prosecution. Consequently, compliance is excellent, almost universal. Now compare that to diversity. Currently, only 14% of workers are women. For frontline labour, that drops to 4%. While the Equality Act 2010 makes discrimination illegal, there's no legal requirement to actually hire a diverse workforce. And because there's no legislative mandate, the industry basically doesn't bother. Many companies continue to rely on word-of-mouth recruitment that maintains an exclusive boys' club. The pattern is undeniable, whether it's holding billions hostage from SMEs, choking the planet with carbon, or turning a blind eye to slavery. The UK construction industry refuses to lead. It's a sector filled with brilliant innovators who suffer from systemic moral inertia. We need to stop pretending that industry-led change is anything more than a PR fairy tale. The Dutch intersection proved that humans can be trusted to act responsibly when the safety nets are removed. However, The UK construction industry proves the exact opposite. It's a collective that has successfully untaught itself a conscience. We don't have an industry of leaders. We have an industry of reluctant compliance chasers who view ethics as an optional surcharge, as an option. Really struggling today. We have an industry of reluctant compliance chasers who view ethics as an optional surcharge they'd prefer not to pay. So let's stop waiting for a moral awakening that isn't coming. Until the government puts a metaphorical boot to its throat with more regulations, more bans, and more fines, this industry will continue to do the absolute bare minimum required to stay out of the courtroom, and it won't move a single inch more. There you are. Apologies for all the mistakes, and there were many, but that's my fault for the day. All comes down to money over morality. Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. I mean, I could have summed it all up in basically that sentence. It all comes down to money over. We could do more for the environment, but that it's going to cost us money. We're going to have to invest in some. Oh no, we're not going to do that. Modern slavery. Well, it sounds awful. It does sound awful, but we do need staff, and if the staff are really, really cheap, that's not a bad thing, is it? That's the way it works. No matter how much companies shout, developers get away. No matter how much companies shout, developers get away with an awful lot. Ain't that the truth? Yes, this industry doesn't stand up to these developers. I'd love to sit here and say yes, it is. It's entirely the fault of the developers. I think it's everywhere. Things like let's give you a very, very minor example. If you I don't know the actual period of time, but if you're running a demolition or construction site, you're required to have toilet facilities. I think in the modern way of things, you're probably now required legally to have a male toilet and a female toilet, just on the off chance that you've got a female visitor. You may not have any female staff, but if you have a female visitor, they need their own toilet. But there is a time limit. Like it's something like if the site's going to be there for like 2 weeks or something like that, then you're required to do it. And you know full well that if they can get away with 3 weeks without a toilet, which they'll have to hire, that's precisely what they'll do. And if they can get away with, we'll keep our fingers crossed that we don't get an HSE inspection. We'll have just the one toilet, male and female, and hope that nobody female turns up. That's our approach. It's how little can we do and get away with it, rather than, morally, physically, spiritually. That's the way we should do things, but we don't. We hold back and hold back and hold back until the government comes along and says, "That's it. It's rule now." And one of the things that struck me while I was writing that was, if we were to set our own standards, we could make those standards achievable, cost-effective, easy to implement, easy to manage, but we don't. What we do is we fudge and we fanny and we obfuscate. And then when the government comes along and says, well, you should be doing this, but you're not, so we're going to put in these rules. And we all go, oh, but those rules are really hard to follow. That's really going to cause me problems. That's going to cost me money. I'm going to have additional people to make sure that we're following the rules. Whose fault is that? If you'd have done right in the first place, maybe the government wouldn't need to impose their wider, broader, deeper regulations upon you. Rules are for the guidance of wise men and the observation of fools. Have you got a book by the side of your computer there, Andy, where you just dredge these out? Because that's very good. I like that one. Dan says, that's interesting. The Swedes do think outside the box. It was actually the Dutch, but I take your point. But can you imagine doing that here? Can you imagine going to Transport for London or Highways England and saying, I've got an idea for an experiment. Yeah, go on then. Yeah, you know that really busy intersection, 100,000 cars a day. Yeah, we know the one. Lots of accidents there. Yeah. Oh, loads of delays. Yeah, we know the one. What's the experiment? Well, you know the traffic lights and the traffic calming and the signs and the curbs. Hey, take them all out. You're going to what now? We take it out, take out everything, and we'll just allow people to use their common sense. How short do you think that meeting would be? But there's the Dutch came up with this idea and said, "Yeah, we'll try it." And lo and behold, less accident. I mean, basically 0 accidents during the course of the experiment. And funnily enough, there's an intersection not far from me. There's a place up the road here called Malden Russia. It's a really strange place because on the map it's listed as like there's a town of Malden Russia. Well, Malden Russia is a row of about 20 houses and a petrol station. There's nothing else there, but it's on an intersection. Part of which leads from Epsom up to Esher, but the other bit, which is the main bit, leads from Chesington and the Chesington World of Adventures theme park up to the M25. So despite the fact that the town virtually doesn't exist, it's a really, really, really busy intersection. On at least 2 separate occasions, I've driven past that with cars on their roof, where they've, skidded to avoid somebody and ended up on their roof, or they've tried to take the corner too quickly. They're coming down off the M25, probably still in motorway mode, and have tried to take basically a right-angled turn, and they've ended up on their roof. Okay, so it's a dangerous intersection. Accidents, collisions happen all the time. What is weird is every once in a while, and I don't live that close to it anymore, but I used to live a lot closer. Every once in a while, the traffic lights there would fail. And the traffic lights failing basically meant less accidents, because all of the locals know this is a busy intersection. You've got people coming down still with their foot to the floor like they've just been on a motorway. And everyone was sort of gingerly edging out of the turning. No accidents at all. But you put the traffic lights in place, you've got the signs in place and everything else. Accidents are plenty. There is method to the madness. Now, I'm not suggesting we go away and remove all the traffic lights, but I do think we as a nation love a rule. We do love a rule to the point where we invite them upon ourselves. I mean, things like the PPE thing, the Health and Safety at Work Act insisted that you had to wear PPE. And then more recently, I can't remember what the more recent subsequent act was, that employers had to provide you with PPE. Whether you're a direct employee or a subcontractor or an agency worker, you have to be provided with PPE. Well, if you're Balfour Beatty or Morgan Sindall or Mace or Lang O'Rourke or one of these companies, you are buying hard hats and high-vis vests for pennies, literally for pennies. If you're going to spend 15 quid on a hard hat, they're buying it for £1 because of the sheer volume that they will be buying. They could have and should have just said, for every job we'll have a we'll allocate that in the budget. We'll have a supply of hard hats, high-vis. If you visit the Liebherr factory up in Biggleswade, to go round the factory, you are required to wear steel toe cap boots. They are very good at telling you this in advance, but some people, this guy, are not particularly good at reading emails. So the last time I was up there, I arrived wearing a pair of regular shoes, and they said, well, you need steel toe cap. Oh, I bet it was on the email. They said, yeah, it was. Don't worry about it. They went into a cupboard and they came back. What size are you? And they hundreds of pairs. Not not the sort of thing you'd want to wear down the pub, not hip and groovy steel toe cap boots, but they were steel toe cap boots because they knew they were going to have enough people going through there to justify holding a stock of steel toe cap boots and high-vis vests. You go to JCB, if you go into their quarry, they have a supply of JCB high-vis vests. You go around their factory, same thing again. So why can manufacturers of equipment do it, and yet contractors, subcontractors, specialist contractors have basically sat on their hands? No, I've got to. Oh, okay then. Why? What? It's not hard. It's not hard. And I do wonder, we talked a while ago about this notion of, back in the day, the health and safety executive were talking about giving the industry earned autonomy. In other words, if you can prove to us that you are really clamping down on the potential for accidents and incidents and fatalities, we will basically allow you and encourage you and support you to police yourselves. Surely one of the steps along the line of that is to go the extra mile. The regulations currently say that, we're doing that. And if you're doing that, maybe the HSE, rather than coming and bothering you and looking for their fee for intervention on your site, maybe there's, Dan Cullen Demolition, we know he's good as gold. Let's go and have a look at somebody else. And sooner or later, when they've done looking at everybody else, maybe the everybody else now starts to come up to Dan Cullen Demolition standards. Surely? We've had exactly the same with waste. Waste disposal. And I will say, the demolition industry has got very adept at recycling and reusing and repurposing arisings from their jobs. But it took the imposition of the landfill tax. In other words, yes, it would be easy to dump that, but if you do, it's going to cost you money. At which point the industry went, time to buck up then. And they went from being good at recycling to being untouchable at recycling. But we waited and we waited and we waited. Exactly the same now. Think about the way that we're moving away from diesel fuel. We could start to make that move now as plant hirers, as contractors, as fleet owners. We could start to make that move now, even if it's only in a very low level way, to kind of get to grips with what it means to run electric machines, or what it might mean to run hydrogen machines. What are the true capabilities? Not what the manufacturers are telling us, not what the bloke on the live stream said, but what are the real world challenges and obstacles that we need to understand for running electric machines. Now, you might have a fleet of 100 diesel machines, but you put one electric in there now, way ahead of time, and you get to grips with it. Your operators get used to it. You get somebody to learn how to maintain it and fix it, look after the battery, take care of the charging. So you've already got a very, very good understanding of exactly how that is going to integrate into your equipment fleet. But no, what we're going to do is we're going to wait until the government finally says, diesel, done. Now what you're going to do? And at that point, when it's outlawed, the industry will, what? Where's my diesel? We've been telling you for 15 years that it was going. This should not be coming as a surprise to you. You could have done your homework. You could have got the feel for these things. You could have ironed out the bugs and worked with the manufacturers and go back and say, look, this system doesn't suit my environment. What can we do together? What can we do to So when the switch off comes, when the diesel switch off comes, not a problem. Another day at the office. We've been doing this for years. But we won't. As an industry, we will wait and wait and wait. What did we do with red diesel? The red diesel debacle. We knew about that, I think it was 3 years in advance, may have been 2, but thereabouts. We knew about it in way in advance. And when did we kick up a stink about it? After it was imposed. What do you mean our fuel's doubled in price? Well, There were consultations, there were webinars on it. You could have actually protested. You could have made your feelings felt. You could have written to your local MP. But what did you do? You ignored it and ignored it and ignored it. And then along comes somebody with a red pen who says, that's it, red diesel, done. What? Because that's the way this industry works. We sit on our hands and we drag our heels until somebody says, well, you had your chance. Too late now. That's what we do. That will do us. That will do us. We're slightly short of an hour. I thought we was going to overrun today. Yeah, that will do us for today. I'm going to be back tomorrow for yet more of the same. No idea what we're going to be discussing tomorrow. Frankly, I can't remember what we were discussing yesterday, so that's how this show works. I'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. for yet more of the same. We've got some more from SaMoTeR to come. I'm fairly sure we've got some more from ConExpo to come as well, and plus a bunch of other stuff as well. So tune in if you possibly can. Until then, everybody. And Dan, I did see your note about liking mouse mats. I will put that mouse mat to one side along with that hat that you've asked me to sit on. Not figuratively. I'm talking about parking it up because Dan's away for a while. So rather than sending it and possibly getting it back, I'll make up a box, Dan. I'll put your hat and your mouse mat in there. When you're back, say the word and I'll get it over to you. We have a deal. Good stuff. Everybody, go and have a fantastic day, and I shall see you for yet more of the same on the morrow.